Sitting down, writing jokes, singing silly songs. I'm sorry I was gone, but look, I made you some content. So yeah, right after I declared I was gonna make a 1,000 subscriber Q&A, the channel kinda spikes. So this is a little bit awkward, but we'll stay the course because the people asking questions were earlier viewers of the channel whom I have so much appreciation for. So here we go. At the Business Seal 2851, looking dapper there, Seal, asks, what was the easiest and hardest video to make in your opinion? By the way, I love the NK and free speech videos. Congrats on a 1,000 subs. Aw, thank you. And it's quite an interesting question. I didn't really think of it before. I would say that each of my videos has their own unique snags and difficulties, starting with my very first series of videos around the documentary Waiting for Superman, which was tough because I had never YouTubed before. Like, literally, what are the mechanics of making a video essay? How do you start researching for one? How do you gather footage? Avoid copyright strikes? How do you make content for an audience of 0 subscribers? At the most basic level, how do you pull video footage off the internet and put it back into your video? How does one, and I quote, upload a video? I'd also point out that my most recent 3 videos were particularly hard as I got really tripped up during the writing process. It's really easy to encounter writer's block when you're trying to formulate a somewhat original and philosophical argument based on all of the material and ideas that you're collecting. Like, one of my arguments in the free speech video was for the audience to consider spam as a form of free speech. But in order to make a proper delivery of that argument, I mean, it requires a ton of rewrites, clarifications, a lot of iterations just to make the argument in a way that makes sense to the average viewer. A good video essay lies obviously in the writing, and that's definitely the hardest part. The easiest video by far was the one on North Korea, which has become my most popular one, funny enough. Long ago, I had a stint researching North Korean affairs. It wasn't much, but then again, I found that it was a hell of a lot more than what was being represented in YouTube creator circles, if you will. And here's a tip for anybody aspiring to make videos on your own. If you spot a circle jerk of factual errors in some corner of the internet, writing tends to come very naturally. No pun intended. Mr. Hodo Astartes writes, Unlearning Economics sent me, feeling right at home in this newly gentrifying channel. I shall culturally enrich Horde Heights with my authentic German bratwurst shack. Oh, bless Unlearning Economics soul. Honestly, his videos were among those really emboldening me to create. He's like me, or was like me, a faceless YouTuber, but he also brings very, you can call them esoteric disciplines to the video essay world, which I'm really sorry to say is otherwise way too philosophy and media critique heavy. I don't want to obviously knock philosophy. I do plenty of that in my videos, but I do think all the philosophy talk can really be enhanced by injecting in more of the objective sciencey stuff and show us a lot more how these abstract ideas can apply in the real world, but also what to do about it. Yeah, so thanks to Unlearning Economics for actually posting in his community board about my video on homelessness. Also, shout out to Paper Will as well, who discovered my work earlier on and really vouched for it. User Chill and Lo-Fi SPF, if I said that right. Loved your North Korea video. How did you get into making video essays? Thank you. I appreciate you watching it. So I like video essays probably for the same reasons you or whoever else is watching loves video essays. There's something really nice in the essay format, which allows you to deep dive into an idea and really try to expand upon it. Also, putting those complex ideas to moving picture, to animation, to audio, not to mention adding a bit of comedic timing, really helps people understand those ideas better. And so, yeah, that culmination of all those different pieces, I think what makes the video essay format so great. All of those things appeal very much to me, not only as a consumer of video essays, but eventually a content creator. It really brings together all the things that I enjoy doing. So yeah, video essays are the natural creative outlet that I've chosen for the time being, which is a great segue to at Cecil Shepherd 9495 asks, who are some of the other creators who inspired you to start your content creation journey? Similarly, Mateos Estatica Tomagnini, if I'm saying that right, what were your inspirations to make the channel inside YouTube and out? So I've been wanting to create for a really long time before actually starting my channel. Does anybody remember the YouTube of like 10 years ago where all of the popular content on politics and society seemed to be dominated by either hard right-wingers, gamergaters, etc. And the only countervailing content came from the so-called atheist/skeptic community? And while they were constantly trading jabs and it was a little entertaining to watch, it was funny. I felt that most creators coming from both of those communities or both of those sides were at least like, hey, we disagree on a lot of things, but there's at least one thing we can agree on, and that's Islamophobia rocks. So yeah, I was a voracious consumer of that type of content at the time, all the while feeling tremendously frustrated and out of place and unable to find a good niche. It was only later that all changed when I first discovered ContraPoints and H-Bomber Guy and similar creators. And this is to get to your question. I feel like I finally had found a niche of creative, hilarious, but also factually trustworthy content that I feel was very much missing during that time in YouTube, which again was dominated by a lot of shallow political punditry. And those creators, I felt, opened up a wellspring of other content that didn't necessarily have to rally around politics or culture wars or just debunking right-wing talking points, but also an appreciation for art, for stuff that elicits more questions than answers. I do remember a particular instance around a time when creators like Thought Slime and Sean were doing Q&A videos. I remember them saying something to the effect of, if you're thinking about making videos, you know, just f***ing do it, you know, just go out there and do it. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think they cursed. It sounds kind of stupid to say that just by hearing them say that I was inspired to jump into creation myself. But for some reason, when they said that, the whole thought of getting into making videos became a lot less daunting. So I don't know. If these type of Q&A videos people find valuable, as I felt in the story that I told you just now, and you're thinking about making content, then I would just follow suit and say, go out and do it. Just do it. What are you waiting for? I also appreciated and felt very influenced by other creators or people that made art forms of explaining complex concepts into easy to understand and entertaining forms. Vlog Brothers, they're always great. Seem like super swell guys facilitating very mutually supportive and nice communities. Kurzgesagt, animation and artwork wise, very, very inspiring. I appreciated the TV show. I guess it's not YouTube. Adam Ruins Everything. Adam Conover, I feel, despite being another nerdy white guy, really thrives at this intersection of comedy and highlighting real world problems, but also doing something about it as well. He's been a very vocal person in things like the SAG-AFTRA strike and other ballot initiatives that were happening here in California where I live. I was also really heavily influenced by, you know, satirists in general. This is far outside of the internet per se. Satirists like Jon Stewart, other stand-up comedians like Bo Burnham, and the more absurd humor, especially sketch comedy from the likes of Lonely Island. These are all people who I draw a lot of inspiration from and have a lot of fun trying to emulate or incorporate into what I create myself. At Mota 4730 4730. How do I spell out screen it? Everyone has numbers in their handles. It's any documentaries or similar types of media or even topics you'd recommend that you won't be able to make a video about? Okay, there is an utter mass of content that I would love to highlight or critique, but never ever will have the time to be able to do so. A while back, I actually mulled over whether my channel should just be dedicated to film critique of decades old big hit documentaries and historical retrospectives around the lessons learned after those documentaries, like I did for Waiting for Superman. But then I realized, I don't know, that wasn't the niche that I wanted to get into. I could continue to keep picking on the director Davis Guggenheim, who after Waiting for Superman went on to make a bunch of other massive hit documentaries that seemed to really resonate with a particular, like a middle to upper middle class, you know, educated liberal audience, right? And there were a lot of opportunities for critique there. Then I was like, okay, well, maybe I could do it on, you know, outside of Hollywood documentaries and look at other types of internet phenomena that were somehow sparked by documentary-like pieces of content, like Coney 2012. Does anybody remember that? Coney 2012. Yes, a couple of white dudes in America are going to fix the child soldier problem in Africa. But am I answering your question correctly? Topics that I'd recommend. I also intended to do a huge series on like nonprofits, charity, philanthropy, how they can be both very inspiring and full of potential and impact, but also on the other hand, continued manifestations of capitalism. That's not to say that I'm not going to cover those topics in the future, though, but it was also another idea that I wanted to maybe revolve my channel around that I'm probably not going to do in the long run. At Jen Aviv, can you tell us more about the cat in the North Korea video? Is that your cat? Is there more than one cat? We need to know everything about the cat. And user Burner writes, I second this. That's my cat, Champ. He's one of 2 cats. He's very private. In fact, he's afraid to leave the house. He likes naps. He likes feeding time. He might be considering a side hustle as a toe bean model. Sussy Scylla 3414 writes, what do you do as a job? Well, I'll tell you this much. It's certainly not a full-time YouTuber. I did mention in my free speech video that I'm employed by the San Francisco Bay Area's illustrious and controversial technology sector. And, well, what does that say about me? To clarify, my background isn't, crudely put, technical, as much as it is varying shades of social science. Hence, that's what informs the perspective that goes into my videos. But being employed in this sector, I do feel very lucky to be able to hold a high-paying job while still having the time to set aside to do this YouTube thing, which I treat very much as a hobby. So unlike a whole lot of other YouTubers who depend on it as a source of their income and livelihood, I do feel quite fortunate that I can just produce content very much at my own preferred pace and style without having to juggle that with the pressures of, shamelessly promoting myself just to make sure that I can pay rent and health insurance. In fact, being in such a position of privilege has really led me to ponder what type of responsibility I might have, especially if more people start to consume the stuff that I'm putting out into the world. So if I keep at this YouTube thing, I do hope in the future that I can continue to explore that question of what it means, to be an ethical content creator on politics and society, and not necessarily make video after video about how one political philosophy over others is the panacea to all of society's ills. And if you just digest this argument about my philosophy, then you are on the path of righteousness. And do you know what I'm saying? XX Dat Cool XX writes, I really appreciate how dedicated you are to making quality videos about important topics. My question is, how much time/research goes into each video? A ton. Literally a heaping ton. Okay. That's not to say that I'm some diligent and skilled researcher, as much as I'm trying to say that I'm really afraid of being wrong, especially being wrong on the internet. And I spend quite a lot of time making sure that every claim I make has not only some objective basis to it, but really so that I can ward off more and more reply guys in the comments saying, hey, you got that thing wrong, or harping on me for lack of sourcing, etc. I also try to be very deliberate about not misrepresenting any sources that I put out there as well, whether I be critiquing those sources or using them to support my own argument. I find that really important. So yeah, such a process takes a lot of time. That combined with writing, editing, uploading, and socializing and all that, well, I'd say it takes well over hundreds of hours of work per video. Hundreds, like 200, maybe even 300. I don't know. I haven't meticulously counted, but it's definitely in the hundreds. Los Flores Lunares asks, any research tips for taking a deeper dive on a topic? How narrow a scope? Where to start for sources, etc. Similarly, F3XT or Fext asks, can you give some tips on how you did research for your videos? They're amazing. Ooh, thank you. And in fact, I do have tips, a lot of tips, but I'd say if I were to boil down the most crucial tips that I wish I had learned earlier, it's one, to really make sure you establish a good note-taking system. Like pick an app or a tool, create an organizing structure that works best for you, and add to your notes adhering to that system the very best you can. Because let me just say, the worst thing in the world is that you've done more than enough research on a topic and you've articulated an idea to flesh out, but are spending way too much time sifting through your unorganized pile of crap for notes rather than actually writing. It really just stymies your productivity and creativity. So commit to a system and stick with it. Two is to research during times that it doesn't really feel like you're researching. In other words, I try not to be a passive consumer of content, in that anything I read or any video I watch, I'll try to pick out the most relevant or poignant bits and commit those to my notes, even though I don't necessarily feel like I'm actively researching in that moment. I don't know. This This is not a new idea. I think people have called this active listening or passive research. I don't know. But the point is that it's all of these tiny moments of you saying, oh, hey, this is like pretty interesting, right? That if you do a good enough job of collecting, those tiny moments build into something that looks very compellingly researched, even though it seemed to just be gathered off the fly or during the regular course of you just consuming content. The third and last tip that I'd share is that when you dig into any field or any field of expertise, make sure you know who like the top 3 to 5 most celebrated, widely circulated, or prolific experts there are in that field and read their work. Get pretty familiar with it. Now, this handful of experts could be deserving of their stature or the respect that they have, or they could very well be full of shit. But at the very least, you need a really good starting point to know where the field sits. Only then can you really feel like you know how to more confidently pursue a research question of your own. I don't know how long this video is going to be in the end, but let me just give one extra word of thanks to everybody, especially the early subscribers of the channel, going, yeah, this content is so great. It's so underrated. I'm just waiting for this channel to blow up. I see you all. I'm extremely humbled that people are willing to sit through these videos and give the content a chance, but also to come back and expect more. And that's what I hope to be doing for you all. So thanks again. More videos to come. Love you all.